My beloved child, become still for a moment and listen beneath the noise of guilt. You may have forgiven them, yet something within you still has no peace about letting them return. You may have released the desire to punish them, yet you hesitate when you imagine giving them the same access they once had. This does not automatically mean your heart is bitter. A guarded door does not always reveal a hardened heart. I have seen the questions you carry in silence. You remember what happened, then wonder whether remembering makes you unforgiving. You think about their apology, then question whether your hesitation is unkind. You feel the loneliness of distance, and suddenly the pain of missing them begins to sound like an instruction to welcome them back. But loneliness is not always guidance. Guilt is not always conviction. Nostalgia is not always confirmation. I do not condemn your tenderness, my child. I know why part of you still hopes. I know why you wish the story could become what you once believed it would be. Yet, I am not asking you to make a permanent decision in a moment of emotional pressure. Slow down. Return to me. Let truth speak before fear, loneliness, guilt, or memory chooses for you. There are doors that close because love has ended, but there are also doors that close because confusion must end. There are spaces I use to restore clarity, to quiet the voice that kept you guessing, and to teach your decisions to come from peace instead of pain. Do not call every boundary cruelty. Do not call every separation failure. Sometimes distance is not revenge but protection, not rejection but preparation, not hatred but room for healing. As it is written, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Guarding your heart does not mean burying compassion. It means refusing to hand sacred access to someone simply because they ask for it. Remember this, beloved, forgiveness, reconciliation, trust, and access are connected, but they are not the same decision. They do not happen at the same speed, and they do not require the same evidence. You can release vengeance without restoring closeness. You can desire another person's good without returning them to the place where they wounded you. So breathe. You do not have to decide everything tonight. Now let me show you the 4 decisions that pain, pressure, and religious guilt have taught you to confuse as one. My child, the first decision is forgiveness. Forgiveness is the release of your claim to personal revenge. It is the moment you say, I will not let resentment direct my steps, shape my identity, or poison every relationship that comes after this one. Forgiveness does not declare the wrong acceptable. It places judgment outside your hands so that anger no longer governs your future. As it is written, do not take revenge, but leave room for the justice of God. You release the weapon, beloved, but you do not have to erase the wound from your memory. The second decision is reconciliation. Reconciliation is not something you can accomplish alone. It is the rebuilding of a relationship by people who are both willing to walk in truth. You can forgive in the quiet of your room, even if the other person never apologizes. But reconciliation requires participation. It requires honesty, responsibility, patience, and a shared willingness to repair what was broken. One heart may open the possibility, but one heart cannot rebuild the entire bridge. The third decision is trust. Trust is not a payment you owe because someone said the right words. Trust grows when truth is repeated through conduct, when promises and actions begin to agree, and when change remains visible after the emotional moment has passed. I do not condemn you for needing time. Time does not make your faith weak. Time allows what is hidden to become clear. The fourth decision is access. Access determines how close someone may come to your daily life. It concerns your conversations, your home, your private thoughts, your family, your time, and the vulnerable places of your heart. Love for a person does not automatically entitle them to all of these places. Access is not seized by urgency. It is stewarded with wisdom. Do you see, my beloved child? You may forgive someone inwardly while keeping communication brief. You may accept an apology while trust remains low. You may be willing to consider reconciliation while deciding that they cannot yet enter your home, receive your private information, or return to their former place in your life. This is not hypocrisy, it is clarity. Remember the order. Forgiveness can be given. Reconciliation must be built. Trust must be demonstrated. Access must be stewarded. These 4 decisions may move at different speeds. One may happen today, another after months of consistent change, and another may never become wise. One sincere act of forgiveness does not force every door to open at once. Now that these decisions are no longer tangled together, let me show you what forgiveness truly releases and what forgiveness will never ask you to deny. My beloved child, I saw the tears you wiped away before anyone entered the room. I saw the nights when your thoughts returned to the same conversation, the same betrayal, the same unanswered question. I saw the time you lost trying to understand what never should have been hidden from you. And I will never ask you to rename harm as love merely to prove that you have forgiven. Forgiveness begins with truth. It says, "What happened was wrong, and I will not become wrong in response to it." It releases the desire to punish, to keep score, to rehearse imaginary confrontations, and to wait for the day when the other person suffers enough to make your pain feel recognized. Forgiveness places justice into my hands, so that resentment no longer occupies your future. But release is not denial. Release says, "This injury will not rule me forever." Denial says, "This injury did not matter." Release allows you to grieve honestly. Denial forces you to smile while your heart remains unheard. Release brings what happened into the light. Denial hides it beneath spiritual language and calls the silence peace. As it is written, the truth will set you free. Truth cannot free what you are still required to pretend never happened. Consequences may remain after forgiveness, beloved. A person may be forgiven and still lose a position of trust. They may receive mercy and still encounter a boundary. They may be released from your vengeance and still be unable to return to your private world. Consequences do not always contradict grace. Sometimes they protect truth from being replaced by emotion. I know the home that once held your silent grief. I know how one message could disturb the atmosphere, how one familiar voice could return you to confusion, how your body learned to prepare for another disappearance, another secret, another reversal. If peace requires distance from that voice, do not call the distance hatred. Sometimes silence is the room in which clarity learns to speak again. Remember Joseph. Betrayal became part of his history, but it did not become the ruler of his identity. The actions of others changed the road he traveled, yet they could not cancel the purpose carried within him. Do you see, my child? What they did may remain a chapter in your story, but it does not receive authority to write the ending. And when anger returns, do not immediately accuse yourself. A memory may reopen emotion without undoing the forgiveness you chose. Bring the anger back to me, release it again. Healing often moves quietly, one faithful surrender at a time. Pain taking time does not mean grace has failed. Your healing is not waiting for their explanation. Your freedom is not waiting for their agreement. Your future is not waiting for their participation. Now that you understand this, you must recognize the pressure that tries to turn grace into compulsory access and spiritual language into a key for a door that wisdom has kept closed. My beloved child, not every sentence spoken in the language of faith carries my wisdom. Some will tell you that love must tolerate every return, that mercy requires immediate closeness, or that caution proves bitterness. Some may say, if you truly forgave, you would let them back in exactly as before. And because your heart desires to honor me, those words may trouble you more deeply than ordinary pressure ever could. But I do not condemn your carefulness. Compassion is not naivety. Mercy is not the abandonment of discernment. Spiritual maturity does not require you to ignore a pattern simply because someone has wrapped a request in sacred words. What comes from me can endure examination. It allows room for prayer, truth, time, counsel, and honest questions. Emotional coercion does something different. It demands an answer before you are ready. It treats hesitation as rebellion. It makes you responsible for relieving another person's discomfort, and it punishes you when you ask for evidence. Do you see the difference, my child? Wisdom says, take the time needed to bring this into the light. Pressure says, decide now or you are unloving. Wisdom respects your freedom. Pressure uses your tenderness against you. Wisdom welcomes truth. Pressure fears what truth may reveal. As it is written, do not believe every spirit, but test what comes before you. Therefore, test the appeal, even when it contains familiar prayers, verses, tears, or promises. Religious vocabulary does not make manipulation holy. You can release vengeance while still protecting your spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being. You can pray for someone and decline a meeting. You can wish them peace and refuse secrecy. You can forgive the past and still require accountability before considering a different future. Be especially careful when someone uses my name to silence your questions, bypass the consequences of their choices, or make you responsible for proving that they have changed. Their transformation is shown through their conduct. It is not proven by your willingness to become vulnerable again. Bring the pressure itself into my presence. Ask, does this proposed reunion produce increasing truth and clarity, or does it merely provide temporary relief from guilt, loneliness, and fear? Does it allow peace to guard your heart, or does it return you to confusion before anything has truly changed? Slow down, beloved. Careful discernment is not the enemy of faith. It can be one of faith's quietest expressions. Yet I must also teach you to examine the distance you keep, because a boundary can protect your healing or become another chain, fastening your heart to the injury. My beloved child, bring your boundary into my light and ask one honest question. Is this distance creating safety and peace, or is it designed to make the other person suffer, chase you, panic, or feel the loss of your presence? I do not ask this to shame you. I know how pain can make control feel like protection. I know the temptation to remain silent, not because silence is necessary, but because you hope they will finally feel what you felt. I know the desire to watch whether they notice your absence, whether they ask about you, whether they regret what they did. I do not condemn you, beloved. I am teaching you how to become free. A protective boundary is clear. It is calm. It is proportionate to what has happened. It says, if this behavior continues, I will step away, rather than, you must become what I demand, or I will make you suffer. A healthy boundary governs your own participation. It does not attempt to control another person's heart. Retaliatory distance behaves differently. It is announced dramatically, withdrawn to provoke pursuit, or repeatedly changed to preserve emotional power. It threatens, tests, disappears, returns, and watches for a reaction. It may look like separation, yet the wounded person remains inwardly tied to every message, every rumor, every sign that the other person is distressed. Protection does not need an audience. Revenge wants the wound witnessed. Protection reduces confusion. Revenge keeps checking the offender. Protection makes room for healing. Revenge keeps the relationship at the center of the heart. Do you see, my child? You can be physically distant and still emotionally governed by the person you left. A closed door alone does not create freedom if you remain pressed against it, listening for every movement on the other side. And perhaps your motives are mixed. Perhaps part of the boundary is wise, while another part wants repayment. Do not tear down necessary protection merely because your heart still needs purification. Keep what creates safety. Release what seeks punishment. As it is written, search me, O God, and know my heart. Let me separate wisdom from vengeance without condemning you for the pain that made them difficult to distinguish. Holy distance is not isolation from everyone. Stay near trustworthy people. Pray honestly. Receive wise counsel. Continue serving, resting, working, laughing, and participating in healthy life. Do not allow one harmful relationship to convince you that every relationship is dangerous. What I desire for you is not hatred, superiority, or emotional numbness. It is enough space for your decisions to come from peace rather than pain. And when the boundary has been purified, you no longer need to measure change by how strongly someone promises. You can begin to examine the evidence through which trust is truly rebuilt. My beloved child, sometimes the person returns just as the fog begins to clear. Their voice is gentler. Their words are careful. They speak of regret, of sleepless nights, of everything they now understand. And because you have missed them, because part of you still remembers the future you once imagined, you may feel pressure to call this emotion transformation. I do not blame you for wanting to believe them. Hope is not foolish. Tenderness is not weakness. But I am teaching you not to confuse the beginning of a conversation with the completion of a change. Remorse and repair are not the same. Remorse may say, I am hurting because I lost you. Repair says, I understand how I harmed you, and I am changing the conditions that allowed it. Remorse may grieve the consequences. Repair accepts responsibility. Remorse seeks relief. Repair is willing to do the slow work that truth requires. Be careful when an apology arrives carrying urgency. Urgency may demand an answer tonight, private communication, immediate reassurance, restored access, or secrecy from the people who helped you become clear. It may tell you that hesitation will destroy the opportunity. Yet, genuine change does not need to frighten you into agreement before evidence can appear. True repair can wait. True repair can listen. True repair can respect a boundary without turning it into another accusation against you. As it is written, you will recognize a tree by its fruit. Fruit does not appear because the tree speaks passionately about what it intends to become. Fruit becomes visible through growth, season after season. In the same way, trust grows when words and conduct agree across ordinary days, disappointment, limits, and conflict. Watch what happens when the person does not receive the response they hoped for. Do they remain truthful when you say no? Do they respect your pace when they feel disappointed? Do they continue changing when there is no immediate reward? A dramatic promise can be made in minutes. Quiet consistency can only be revealed through time. Time is not cruelty, my child. It is not a punishment designed to make someone beg. Time is the place where hidden motives become observable, where repeated conduct answers questions that emotion cannot answer, and where peace is allowed to return before closeness is reconsidered. You may receive an apology without promising reconciliation. You may acknowledge their regret without restoring their former access. You may say, "I hear you, and I need time," without explaining yourself again and again. And you do not need to become their supervisor. You are not responsible for tracking every step, correcting every failure, or managing their transformation. Let their conduct speak. Now I will give you a practical test, not a test built on sudden feelings or persuasive promises, but one that brings ownership, boundaries, restitution, consistency, and truth into the light. My beloved child, do not search for a mysterious sign when truth can be examined in the light. A sudden feeling may move you. A familiar song may stir a memory. A dream may leave you wondering. But the future of a wounded relationship should not rest upon one emotional moment or your need for perfect certainty. I am teaching you to look for fruit. First, test ownership. Do they name what they did clearly, or do they hide behind vague words? Do they say, "I hurt you when I lied, disappeared, betrayed your confidence, or ignored your boundary"? Or do they say, "Mistakes were made, but you also caused this"? True ownership does not excuse, minimize, blame, or use spiritual language to escape responsibility. It does not demand that you forget before they have learned. Second, test their respect for boundaries. When you ask for time, do they give it? When you limit communication, do they honor the limit? Or do they bargain, become angry, send repeated messages, create guilt, or recruit family and friends to speak for them? A person who claims to respect your heart but refuses to respect your no is revealing something important. Third, test restitution. Where damage can be corrected, are they willing to act? If they damaged your reputation, do they tell the truth? If they created a practical loss, do they make a sincere effort to repair it? If they broke an agreement, do they accept the consequences? Words may open a conversation, but repair requires conduct. Fourth, test consistency. Do they continue changing when access remains limited, when you are not praising them, and when they do not receive an immediate reward? Do they remain honest in ordinary days, disappointed moments, and difficult conversations? As it is written, let perseverance complete its work. What is genuine does not need to be forced into maturity overnight. Fifth, test whether the relationship can withstand truth and counsel, can mature. Trustworthy people know what is happening. Can wise questions be asked without secrecy, fear, or retaliation? Counterfeit repair often seeks isolation because isolation makes confusion easier to maintain. True repair is not afraid of light. Then match access to evidence. For a season, wisdom may require no contact. In another situation, only essential practical communication may be appropriate. Later, limited conversation may become possible. Some meetings may need to happen in a public place or with trusted support nearby. Broader access should come only when consistent evidence makes it wise. And if old patterns return, you may pause. You may reduce access. You may restore a boundary that was relaxed too soon. This is not failure, my child. it is a response to truth. Where your spiritual, emotional, or physical well-being remains threatened, protection and trusted support must come before renewed contact. Do not place yourself in danger to prove that your forgiveness is sincere. Remember the contrast. True repair welcomes truth, time, accountability, and freedom. Counterfeit repair demands speed, silence, access, and control. Yet even when this test makes the answer clear, your heart may still grieve not only the person you knew, but the relationship you kept hoping they would become. My beloved child, sometimes you are grieving two relationships at once. You are grieving the person who truly stood before you, with all their choices, limitations, and patterns. But you are also grieving the person you kept hoping they would become the honest partner, the safe parent, the faithful friend, the gentle sibling, the listening child, the relative who would finally meet you in truth. This second grief can be difficult to name because it concerns a future that never fully existed. You imagined the conversation in which everything would finally be understood. You imagined the apology that would make honesty possible. You imagined holidays without tension, a home without fear, or a love that no longer kept you guessing. And each time they returned with tender words, it felt as though that future had returned with them, even when the present evidence had not changed. I do not condemn your hope. I know why you held it for so long, but hope must not require you to deny what is happening now. Your tears do not prove that the boundary is wrong. Wisdom does not erase love. Discernment does not remove memory. You can make a wise decision and still weep over its cost. As it is written, I am near to the brokenhearted. Therefore bring me not only what happened, but what never happened. Bring me the safety you wanted, the loyalty you waited for, and the mutual repair that never came. Perhaps this wound came through romance. Perhaps it came through family, where the bond felt too sacred to limit. You may be mourning a parent who could not acknowledge your pain, a sibling who repeatedly betrayed your confidence, an adult child who will not participate in honest repair, or a relative who expects closeness without accountability. Family ties can deepen grief, but they do not make harmful patterns holy. Some relationships may never become safe enough for restoration. This is painful, beloved, but it is not a prophecy that you will always be alone. One person's unwillingness to build truthfully does not cancel your capacity to receive love, community, loyalty, or peace. Stop rehearsing the one perfect sentence that might finally change them. Stop bargaining with memories. Lament instead. Say plainly, this is what I lost. This is what I hoped for. This is what I cannot create alone. Let grief become honest in my presence, rather than disguised as another attempt to reopen the door. The ending does not prove that you were unworthy of love. It may mean that confusion no longer receives permission to define love for you. You may bless their future from a distance. You may pray for their healing without assigning them a place in your present life. And as grief loosens its hold, the space they left behind will no longer feel like a vacuum demanding to be filled. It can become a quiet place where clarity begins to grow. My beloved child, the quiet after separation may feel strange because your heart became accustomed to noise. You grew used to waiting for the next message, interpreting the next silence, preparing for the next change in tone. When that cycle stops, peace may initially feel empty simply because it is unfamiliar. Do not mistake unfamiliar peace for abandonment. In this quieter place, I am teaching you to move from survival into discernment. Survival asks, how do I prevent the next wound? Discernment asks, what kind of relationship produces truth, stability, freedom, integrity, and peace? Survival watches every movement in fear. Discernment observes patiently and refuses to surrender wisdom merely to escape loneliness. But be careful, beloved. Do not let discernment become suspicion of everyone. Healing is not complete when the heart becomes impossible to reach. I am not forming you into someone cold, isolated, or consumed with searching for hidden motives. I am making you wiser and freer, able to love without abandoning truth, able to listen without silencing your inner warning, able to remain open without becoming unguarded. You are not used. You are not forgotten. You are not weak because betrayal hurt you. You are not defined by what another person failed to honor, and you do not need their approval, their return, or their explanation in order to become whole. Remember Ruth. Her future did not unfold because she chased every possible connection or forced an answer before its time. She continued walking faithfully, and healthy connection became recognizable through provision, protection, character, and right conduct. Do you see, my child? Preparation is not a demand to find an immediate replacement. It is the slow formation that enables you to recognize what does not require self-betrayal. Therefore, strengthen clarity through ordinary faithfulness. Pray honestly, reflect slowly, rest from constant messages. Remain close to truthful people. Let stable values guide your decisions when temporary emotions rise and fall. Healing often grows beneath the surface before anyone else can see it. Healthy love does not demand secrecy to survive. It does not require chronic guessing. It does not ask you to lose your voice, violate your conscience, or surrender peace in order to prove devotion. What is healthy can live in truth. What is trustworthy can withstand time. The purpose of your boundary is not to keep love outside forever. It is to prevent confusion from continuing to occupy the place where truth should live. This closed door need not become a monument to pain. It can become a bridge toward a wiser, steadier, and more open future. Now bring every distinction, every test, every grief, and every hope into my presence. Let us end by releasing resentment without surrendering wisdom. Take a slow breath, my beloved child. Bring before me the person, the injury, the questions that were never answered, and the future you once imagined. Do not minimize what happened. Do not make the wound smaller in order to make forgiveness easier. Bring it truthfully. Father, I release my desire for revenge. I release the conversations I keep replaying, the demand that this person repay me emotionally, and the hope that their suffering will finally prove that my pain mattered. I place justice into your hands. Do not let resentment become the voice that directs my future. Yet help me retain wisdom. Keep truth clear in my mind. Help me remember, without living in fear, to accept appropriate consequences without hatred, and to maintain every boundary necessary for my spiritual, emotional, and physical well-being. If repair is ever attempted, give me discernment. Let me recognize ownership without excuses, respect without pressure, restitution without performance, and change that remains consistent through time. Give me courage to accept continued distance when these signs are absent. Give me humility to reconsider carefully if genuine evidence appears, without rushing ahead of peace. I reject the false choice that says I must either remain bitter or restore unrestricted access. Forgiveness and wisdom can live together. Mercy and boundaries can stand together. Love and truth do not need to become enemies. Beloved, when this prayer ends, write 3 things for your own clarity. The boundary that currently protects your peace, the evidence that would be required before it changes, and the name of one trustworthy person who can help you evaluate what happens next. Do not write from panic, write from truth. And hear me now. You may walk forward without revenge. You may move slowly without guilt. You may refuse to reopen what remains unsafe. I will not allow this wound to define every person you meet or every relationship still ahead of you. You will love more wisely without losing tenderness. You will trust more carefully without surrendering hope. When confusion returns, return to me. When guilt becomes loud, return to truth. Guard your heart. Remain honest. Let peace govern your pace. The door you keep closed today does not prove that your heart is closed forever. It may simply mean that healing is still sacred, wisdom is still watching, and peace is still leading. Be still, my child. Stay near me. Walk in truth, walk in wisdom, walk in peace.